morning. It's 9 o'clock, June 9th. Let's please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call will show that all board members are present today. The first item we have on the agenda is to approve the agenda. Let me ask, do we have any changes in today's agenda? Are there any changes?
I think we've got one item that's...
and that is...
yeah, number 7 on the
okay, number 7, the Anderson Farm. Do you have any comments or questions about that?
We will just pull that from the agenda since... and Becky's going to explain, actually.
Yeah, Becky, would you please explain that?
Mr. Chair, Commissioners, Becky Schlorf from the Environmental Services Department and the Ag and Water Resources Division Supervisor. The agenda item, Anderson Family Farms Partnership on the CUP, there was a petition submitted to the Environmental Quality Board yesterday, and so that petition does need to be reviewed. And so no decision can be made on anything that's been petitioned. And so the Environmental Quality Board will, once the petition is deemed complete, they will then determine who the regulatory government unit is on making the decision for the environmental assessment worksheet, which is what the petition is calling for. And that'll be done by Monday, so we expect to hear more by Monday.
Okay. So, Mr. Chair, I would just say we just pull it from the agenda. You don't need to table it or anything. We'll just remove it from the agenda and bring it back when appropriate.
Okay. All right. I know the Andersons are here, and I know they had, if any of the board members had questions for them, that they would have been able to have asked them prior to that. Becky, just for clarification, will they, as far as the future of this, that assessment has to be completed? And
Mr. Chair, Commissioners, the environmental assessment worksheet is not a given. The petition is calling for one, and so there are projects that can meet an exemption. And if a project meets an exemption to that, to the EAW, no government unit can call for an EAW. So that may be the situation here. So once the regulatory government unit is named, then that unit, which could very well be Stearns County, would make the decision on the exemption.
okay. So as far as that coming back, would there be then action that would be taken on the 30th, or would that have to wait until the following? If
Stearns County, if the petition is complete and Stearns County is named the RGU, then it could come back before the board on the 30th for making a decision on the EAW and the petition.
All right.
So the decision on the CUP would most likely not be back to the county board until August.
Okay, good.
At the earliest.
All right. Yep.
Just for the public, could you just say what the exemptions might be, or when? I just think that's helpful.
Sure.
Timeline, is that what you mean?
Well, or what doesn't have to go through that process?
So
Doesn't have to have a review.
the exemptions are met if a facility is less than 1,000 animal units, and provided it's not in a sensitive feature or sensitive area. So it's not in shoreland, delineated floodplain, vulnerable parts of a delineated drinking water supply management area, a karst area. Also, the applicant would need to sign a written statement that they are proposing to design, construct, and operate the facility in full compliance with the MPCA feedlot rules. And then the third condition is that the county board holds a public meeting for citizen input at least 10 business days before the MPCA or county issues a feedlot permit, unless another public meeting for citizen input has been held with regard to the feedlot to be permitted.
Would that include the one that we had at the Planning Commission?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
That's helpful, thank you.
All right, anyone else? If not, I guess if you would have a chance, board members, and also those people that are concerned for the public, if you talk to the Anderson as far as making a visit on that. It's a very controversial issue as far as some folks see it as that. And so, I'd like to make sure that, we get the questions answered for those that folks might have questions, okay? So, anything else? If not, then we'll go ahead with the, a motion to approve the agenda, with the exception of the item we just discussed.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Lenzmeyer, second by Notch. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. The next item we have is public forum. Is there anybody wishing to speak today at the public forum? Is there anyone wishing to speak at the public forum today? Okay. Basically, you have 3 to 4 minutes in which to speak, okay? And yeah, you can be speaking about any of the items that are not on the agenda today. And hopefully, if there's a number of people that speak, that we can keep it under 10 or so minutes. So go ahead, identify yourself and bring your issue up.
Hi, thank you. I'll keep it very brief. My name is Barb Songfrank. I am from St. Paul, Minnesota, and I am here in absence of, we have members, citizens from Crow Lake Township who petitioned, who generated the petition and submitted that yesterday. They wanted to be here to speak, but there was a snafu, and so they're not here yet to speak. So I'm simply here to acknowledge that they intended to be here, wanted to express their concerns about the proposal, wanted to also express their concerns about the entire process of notification of pieces of information, vital pieces of information missing from the packet that was approved by the Planning and Zoning Commission on June 26th, of having been denied their request for additional time to review when a day before that meeting a change was made in the setback in the position of the facilities for setback purposes. And so they are would be here asking that as the commission and all decision makers involved will carefully study all of the packet materials. There is, as noted in the minutes from May 22nd by Environmental Services, it's acknowledged that an MMP, a manure management plan, is required for this facility, even if it is determined that this doesn't exceed the 1,000 animal unit capacity. The concern on the part of petitioners is that it appears very much in comparison with other facilities that it does meet the capacity for 1,000 animal units or better. So that is one of the concerns that they asked to have studied, and that removes the exemption. And so those are the manure management plan, because it's already required. Whether or not there's exemption for 1,000 animal unit cap in an EAW must be made available to the public and must be available for review, as that will be crucial to determine dangers to drinking water sources when it comes to application of almost 4 million gallons of waste. Thank you.
I missed your introduction.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I'm Barbara Song Frank, and I'm from St. Paul, Minnesota. I'm here as a representative for our members who are petitioners in Crow Lake County, who are on their way here but were unable to be here by this time for the public comment.
I jumped to a conclusion. I thought you were with a governmental unit, but you're with a nonprofit?
No, yes, I'm with Land Stewardship Project.
Okay.
And our members called to ask us to help them with the petition
Well,
process.
you're getting it.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Anyone else wishing to speak today? Anyone else wishing to speak today? Please state your name and your address.
Renee Bjork, 20584 County Road 18, Bruton.
Okay.
And I am a property owner next to this proposed hog farm. And I'm concerned about the wetland and the setbacks, and I'm concerned about groundwater. And I'm also concerned about my property values, which will definitely decline. I'm in the, right in the vicinity of the prevailing winds from the odor of this proposed hog farm. And speaking for the neighbors also, they have the same concerns as I do. We just feel like it's just not fair that a millionaire can come in and steal our property values. Some of us have been there for 50 years, and it's all that we own. This guy could probably build this facility on a more suitable piece of land, and that's all I'd like to say. Thank you.
Okay. Anyone else wishing to speak at the public forum? Anyone else wishing to speak?
Good morning, Mr. Chair,
Good morning.
Commissioners. I'm Dwayne Willenbring. I live at 25123 County Road 139. And very briefly, I'd like to just quickly ask for specifics on the logistics of information. And it's relating to item number 4 in the consent agenda. And it's the application for the Sauk River Watershed District Board. I am one of the candidates, as you are probably aware. And I'm just curious if the application and the resume and the qualification statements, was that circulated to all of the members of the commissions?
Okay. I believe it was. I think we have all seen that
It is in the
information.
packet.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much.
Anyone else wishing to speak today? Anyone else wishing to speak? If not, we'll close the public forum and we'll move on to the consent agenda. Commissioners or board members, we have before you the
You can go to page 2.
7 items with the removal of item 7 on the consent agenda. Are there any of those other items that wish to be pulled for further discussion before we move them forward?
I move approval of the consent agenda.
Okay, we got a motion to approve
I'll second that.
with a second, Commissioner Lenzmeyer. Any discussion on those? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Okay, next item we have is parks.
Okay.
Good morning, Commissioners.
Good morning.
I'm Sarah Weed, I'm the Parks Operations Coordinator. Today, I'm here for the board to adopt the resolution in support of the co-application with the City of St. Cloud for legacy funding for the Beaver Island Trail Extension. If the grant application is chosen, the City of St. Cloud and Stearns County will be able to complete the Beaver Island Trail from St. Cloud to the City of Clearwater following County Road 75. The Parks Department is seeking a portion of construction funding from the Greater Minnesota Regional Parks and Trails Clean Water Land and Legacy Amendment. The county is requesting for their portion of $1.5 million with no match required. However, the Parks Department will use a $427,000 federal transportation alternative as a grant, as a match. Any questions?
Okay. Sarah, how are we sitting on the right-of-way on that again? We had a couple questionable properties, is that correct?
Yep, yeah, so we're still in communication with 2 of the landowners, but we are able to build around that property if it won't. The 2 properties that we would like to acquire would reduce the cost of construction.
Okay, sure.
Yeah.
In the case of the Heatons, who are down by Clearwater, it took 15 years and the passing of certain family members before that was resolved. So stay with it. You're a younger person. I hope you're around a while because it might take that long.
Yeah, yep.
Yeah.
And with that, Commissioner Lenzmeyer, is that possible to have an alternative build?
Yes,
Okay,
yep,
so that we have.
Yeah, we got that figured out. Yeah.
yep,
All right.
yeah, the
I
right
didn't
of
think I
way.
was that great of a genius, no.
No, it's, that's
Yeah.
my end, so
Oh.
I'm supposed to know about this.
Okay, all right, sir.
I do have something on page 121. This maybe is just, I need a clarification here. It says there's no match required, but then right off to the right of that, it says Stearns County will provide $427,106.
Yes,
And City of St. Cloud will provide $480,000, which a total non-county match of $907,000.
the 408, sorry, yeah, so the 408 is the city match, and ours would be the 427. 7.
But up on the left-hand side, it says there is no match.
It's not required for the legacy amendment, but what we're doing to create a greater chance for us to receive that grant is to show that we do have a match.
So Stearns County is putting $427,000 in there when none is required?
Yes.
Mr. Chair, Commissioner, that $427,000 is federal money, though.
Yeah,
Federal
it's,
transportation money.
yes. We received the federal transportation grant earlier this year.
Okay, does that have to be used for trails, or could that be used for roads?
It is used for
It's
trails.
a Trails grant.
Yeah.
It's totally a trails grant? Okay. All right, okay, thank you.
And, Mr. Chair, it makes us more competitive. I mean, my understanding with these grants is if
Yes.
you come in with no match, you're not likely to get it. So the fact we've got federal money, so we're not taking it thankfully from
Yes.
our taxpayer base.
No, that's
That should
exactly.
help us improve it, and it looks like we're also needing that amount of money to be successful with just completing the project.
Completing the project is a large chunk of points for the Greater Minnesota grant.
I'm not sure, it's transportation alternative grant, so I don't know exactly all the rules
So
of
it's,
that, but
so it's, just to make sure I'm correct on this, it's not money coming out of the levy,
that's correct.
Correct.
okay, and it's not money that could be used for actually building roads.
I'm not so sure I can answer that absolutely,
Yes.
but is that right?
Yeah, you
Thanks,
can.
Jody. I was going to ask Jody, but it's
Okay.
called a transportation alternative grant, and I think it's designated for trails.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Any more questions on the trails? If not, I'll look for a motion to move that application.
So moved.
Commissioner
Unless
Clark?
Mr. Lensmeyer wants to move it.
No, I'll second it.
Okay.
A strong second.
Yeah, I'll accept the motion from a stronger mind.
No argument on the board. Any further questions?
And this is just a unique application process because we are joining with the city of St. Cloud here in hopes of having a stronger application.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
And I appreciate the cooperation with St. Cloud Parks Department and Stearns Parks. We know this is something we've looked at for quite some time, and hopefully we can, better with the right-of-way acquisitions as well. So I'm looking forward to seeing that happen. Any other discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion passes.
Thank you for.
Okay, Sarah, just real quickly, since we have you here.
Okay.
We got to ask you a few questions. As far as the park this year, Quarry Park, how's the swimming been out there as far as access numbers of visitors?
We're at an average of 133, which is per day at 2:30, which is lower from last year at this time. Yeah. So we have been seeing an increase in people since we were the most unique place to swim on or through orbits. So we have seen an increase in people. I think on Sunday there was an average of 450. At Quarry 2 at 2:30, which is lower.
Okay.
So, but we haven't had any issues
No.
so far with, but again, issues with alcohol, trespassing, climbing on the rocks, that will always be an issue. But
Yeah, and that's what I was going to ask about as far as some of the behaviors that were going on out there. We had some concerns with the use of alcohol, also with thefts. Have we had a number of reported thefts or?
we haven't heard anything from Park Patrol. Park Patrol has made their presence there, and we will be having some plainclothes deputies out there to really crack down on it a little bit more. So that will, yeah, I don't want to give any.
Does plainclothes mean swimsuit?
Yeah, so we'll,
Okay.
not going to give out any dates for that, but
Okay.
that is.
And then also, we had a couple of near misses and drownings out there, which were, somewhat tragic last year. Did we put that buoy line up?
Yes,
And
that was.
Any issues at all?
No, we haven't heard anything, so.
Okay.
Yeah. And we received radios for the staff, so if there is an issue, we are one of the first peoples to hear it, and we were actually able to help with the Warner asthma attack in the water.
Oh,
So we were
yeah.
able to contact the caretakers prior to the police getting there, so,
Okay,
yeah.
good. Anyone else, questions? Okay, if not, continue a good summer out there.
Yeah,
I
thank you
think
for your
Orbit's
support.
recognized Quarry Park as the #1 swimming beach
Yep,
in the
yep.
state?
Yeah, 2016 and 2018. So we'll hopefully see yeah, we hope to see more people, more people bring in more issues, but,
And better weather,
what?
better weather.
Yes,
Yeah.
better weather, yeah,
Okay.
yep. So,
Okay, thank you, Sarah.
yeah, thanks for the support.
Next item, we go on to Public Works. Jody Tyke, hello.
Good morning, Commissioners. Before I begin my items, I was just going to provide one point of clarification, aside from nodding from the audience. Transportation alternatives funding is awarded on a project-specific
Good
basis.
comment, Scott.
And it could only be used for that particular project, and they're generally non-motorized transportation projects. So I just wanted to provide that clarification. So my first item under Public Works is on page 124 of your agenda packets. It is a standard MnDOT agreement to receive bridge bonding funds from the state, and this is related to SAP 073609-041. This is the County Road 9 structure replacement over Spunk Brook. The contract was awarded by the County Board to Landwehr Construction on March 12th of this year. So this standard agreement, many pages long, includes a resolution on page 138 of your agenda packets, which is a requirement for any MnDOT agreement. It acknowledges the award amount, and it also authorizes the board chair and county auditor treasurer to execute the agreement on behalf of the county. So I'm asking the board to approve that agreement and adopt the corresponding resolution.
Okay. Questions on that structure? If not, I'll look for a motion.
So moved.
A second.
Commissioner Notch, second by Commissioner Mergen. Discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.
So for my next item, I just wanted to give you a brief construction update. It's July, and I'm sure some of you are wondering when projects will be done, when they'll start. So I'll go through a few of the projects, and then you can let me know if you have other questions. The County Road 9 structure replacement that we just passed the agreement on, that actually started a couple of weeks ago. They paved it back in yesterday. Today they're working on shouldering and turf, and that should be reopened tomorrow. County Road 4 and 120 roundabout in northwest St. Cloud started yesterday. Work on that will continue into September, but that'll be a much improved intersection when it is done. There's a detour in place on that. The County Road 75 resurfacing that we've been talking about for quite some time. If the rain holds off today long enough, the goal is that by the end of the day or early evening, more likely, traffic will be shifted back into the correct direction. So westbound traffic will be on the westbound lanes, eastbound will be on the eastbound lanes. Westbound will be opened back up to 2 lanes from just west of the Sauk River Bridge, that's near our office, just north of our office. It'll be 2 lanes all the way to the freeway. Eastbound will still be in 1 lane because they have to finish some curb and gutter work along the median that needs some cure time. They're doing some other median work. They have to remove the temporary striping, do some of the permanent striping on those eastbound lanes. And we're hoping that'll be done within a couple of weeks and the whole road will be open back up. Our resurfacing contract, we're still waiting for the exact start date from the contractor, but they know that we are not going to stray from our completion date of September 2nd. The latest we've heard is they are actually going to be starting down in that Kimball, Main Prairie Township area on that work, and then we'll work their way throughout the county where we have that resurfacing. But again, that's supposed to be done by Labor Day weekend. County Road 75 and 33rd Street South, we expect that to start within the next couple of weeks. We're waiting till after a pre-construction conference to get that exact start date. That work does need to be completed by September 27th. So there will be some traffic restrictions down on the south side of St. Cloud. When that work is taking place, there will be some overnight road closures to get some of that intersection work done, but we will be updating the website as that work is taking place. We have another structure replacement. It's a Crane Township structure under 390th Street, but it also goes under the Wobegon Trail. Xcel Energy still needs to move their power poles, so we have been waiting and working diligently with them. It will likely be the end of the month before that starts. Once it starts, it should be done easily within a month, but we just need those Xcel poles to be out of the way so that structure can be set. I don't know if there's any other questions on the construction that's taking place at this point.
Jody, what about 33rd South? as far as that going through to the new high school?
I don't know the exact schedule. I know they were opening up key intersections ahead of schedule. The city, that's a city street, and
correct.
so that's their project. But it's difficult construction, and with the rain we've gotten and the soils that are out there, I know that their goal is to have that complete by the time the school opens this fall.
Okay.
That's it.
Okay.
I do have one miscellaneous item. Avon Township, as you may be aware, was the recipient of a local road improvement program grant, and they are resurfacing Norway Road within the township. It's SAP 073-592-006. They have asked us to do the contract administration. They will be doing all the construction inspection and everything related to that, but they asked if we would run the contract through us, so I'm asking the board to approve a bid opening date on that of July 19th, 2019. There is no cost to us except for some very minimal paperwork, and we still need to do those requests for state funds for the township anyway. It's a requirement of MnDOT, so it's just some additional minor work. So I'm just asking the board to set that bid opening date.
Okay, would somebody like to do that?
I'll move to set the bid opening
Okay,
date of
Commissioner
July
Mergen.
19th.
A second.
Commissioner Clark, any further discussion on that? If not, all those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion passes.
And that's all I have unless the board has anything for me. Thank
we're
you.
good.
Thank you.
Next item we have is an item from Lutheran Social Services. Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Thank you, Chair Persky and the Board of Commissioners. We are really pleased to be here today to talk with you about this project. My name is Patrice O'Leary. I am Associate Vice President for Lutheran Social Services, and with
Could
me
you
to-
move the mic up just a
Yeah, I
bit?
can't
for me?
hear you either.
All right.
Sorry.
All right.
There you go.
Go ahead.
Yeah, okay. I'm Patrice O'Leary. I am Associate Vice President for Family Services with Lutheran Social Service. I've been with the organization for nearly 20 years. Beside me is Jamie Stampley, who is our Senior Director of Housing Services. And both of us have responsibilities that are across the state. We're really grateful to have the opportunity to present more information about the Family Homeless Prevention Grant to you, and would welcome an invitation to do so at any time in the future as well. I want to give you just a bit of brief history about how we came to be doing this work in other parts of the state as well as here in the St. Cloud region. The organization itself serves all 87 counties of the state of Minnesota. It does it through a whole host of funding sources. They are federal government, state government, local county contracts, and private donations. More specific to this particular grant, we have been a grantee from the state of Minnesota, the Minnesota Housing Agency, since 1999. We have served as a grantee for that program in the Brainerd Lakes area, 3 counties, Crow Wing, Todd, and Morrison, since that time. We have been serving the St. Cloud region and we're going into our 5th year. And this project had been originally held by Tri-County Community Action Program. The funding from Minnesota Housing began in 1993, and sometime thereafter, I'm not sure exactly the date that this region was funded, but sometime in the mid-90s, TRICAP was awarded the grant, as well as many other regions of the state. They held the grant up until sometime in the mid-2000s, and the grant was transferred to another community provider, Catholic Charities, and they held the grant for several years. At that point, if you remember, Catholic Charities was going through some reorganization locally, and they opted to not be the grantee any longer. And so the community was looking for a provider to come in and support the project. At that time, they did some research and asked if LSS would come in and be the grantee for this project. At the time, there were some issues with the grant in terms of just community development and support. And so we came in and with assistance from the state of Minnesota, Minnesota Housing, and a consultant named Mike Mannard, we performed a really comprehensive community needs assessment and really worked hard at developing a charter and bylaws to guide the project, as well as developing a stronger program design. Rather than having each of the providers sort of do their own thing, if you will, we wanted to structure the project so it was a single program that people that were in need of housing services could access and in a more streamlined way receive the help that they needed. And so we have been the grantee for this project since that time. Today, we are a provider of these services locally, along with RISE and Catholic Charities, who serves youth in the project. As I mentioned, the funding is exclusively funded by the state of Minnesota through the legislative allocation, and it is awarded to grantees in a competitive process every 2 years. At this time, there is no required county match or any county dollars that are added to the project or required of the county. And so in requesting the board's approval for the resolution to provide this service, it is an attempt by the state of Minnesota to have a relationship with each of the counties where the service is provided in order that we can work together. And that most significantly has to do with the state's recommendation around the order of funding that is deployed for resolution of housing and homelessness issues. It would be the state's recommendation that emergency assistance would be used and exhausted before this funding source is tapped into. So that's part of the relationship that we have with each of the counties where we serve. The Minnesota Housing also offers oversight to all of the projects. They require a work plan and a written budget to be prepared by each of the projects that they oversee. As I mentioned, they guided us and approved a charter and bylaws by which a local advisory council administers the grant. And the Minnesota Housing holds as a very high priority that local stakeholders would participate and guide the project. So, pardon me, we do that. We do that in earnest with this project. Pardon me, and the bylaws actually establish voting ability and membership, although those thresholds are not so high that we don't have really widespread community participation. So what I have that I'd like to share with you are a couple of handouts that I will talk about, and if we could approach with some handouts, Jamie will distribute those for you. The first handout describes some of the outcomes and service targets that were established for the biennium we are just finishing, or have just finished. And the next document is the work plan that we have developed for the forthcoming biennium. Minnesota Housing requires periodic data reporting as well as a narrative on the work plan. Data from the slide set that you have received gives pretty detailed information in the previous biennium, and that would be year one of the previous biennium, that reports a total of 89 households were served. 58 of those were new households. And the demographics of those households were that 39 were single adults, 26 were families, and 9 were youth. The interventions that we used to resolve that housing issue is that for 27 of the households, we prevented homelessness. For 29 of those households, they were doubled up and were rehoused and prevented from becoming homeless. And another 33 households were homeless. If we march forward in time to an 18-month interval, we reached a service total of 109 households, 37 of those with homeless prevention, 34 rehoused from being doubled up, and 38 were homeless. Now, these service numbers are from the total project area. That would be Stearns, Benton, Sherburne, and Wright counties. 63% of the households we serve are in Stearns County, so the great majority are here in Stearns County, and that's because it's a major population center.
Excuse me, and is the majority, is that in the city of St. Cloud? Would you say?
We don't break it down by city. We actually look at the whole county. Some of the limitations we have on breaking out this data is that we are required to use a data collection system that the state of Minnesota supports, and it's the national database that is used to track homelessness. So we have some limitations about how to extract really specific data, but we'll do our best to try and provide that information to you. 50% of the calls that we get in this project, in this 4-county project, originate from Stearns County, and that would be over 1,000 calls per year. When we break that down into how many we are actually funded to serve, we can serve about 10% of those who are eligible. So even with this funding, we are just really beginning to address the homelessness problem and really are working hard to capture a larger share of the legislative application for this funding. Other key data points that you'll find in the slide set are that 53% of the households we support that have become homeless are as a result of domestic violence. You'll also see that a relatively small percent of the persons we serve are veterans, and that has to do not with the fact that we aren't always trying to outreach to those veterans, but there have been some really fabulous efforts made to bring forward other supports, and it's really an indicator that that is working and that we have fewer and fewer veterans who are approaching our program needing supports. Households are screened for eligibility as is outlined in our needs assessment that is prepared every biennium and is determined by the advisory committee. The services that we provide include a needs assessment, case management, and direct financial assistance to those households to pay rent and rental deposit. Households are assisted for various times, depending on their needs and barriers to sustaining stable housing. In year one of the most recent biennium, exit outcome data indicates that 46 or 79% out of the 58 households that exited were stably housed. Another 5 were at imminent risk of homelessness, and 7 had exited to homelessness. Most were housed in a rental unit, with the majority spending 31 to 50% of their income on rent. And the most common term for service duration is 3 to 6 months, and that would be with case management and financial assistance. As a financial overview for the project, the total approved budget for the 2021 biennium is $379,082. Of that budget, the administrative share is $34,284. That would be for 2 years. Prevention services, this would be the staff time to support and screen and do case management for the households who are targeted for prevention services, is $81,436 for a period of 2 years. And prevention direct assistance is for an amount of $61,343 for 2 years. Rapid rehousing, which would be finding housing for households that are homeless as quickly as possible, is $93,812. The direct assistance to pay rent and deposit for that category is $104,583. Of that, the budget is being distributed to you.
Yeah.
So with that $379,082, We aim to serve a total of 119 households, 63 with homeless prevention and 56 with rapid rehousing. And we are aiming to target single adults at 52, single youth at 12, families at 43, and youth families at 12. The grant, as proposed, would be carried out by LSS, RISE, and TRICAP, and is being distributed as is recommended by our advisory committee. What did I say? Oh, sorry, TRICAP. Oh, sorry, SHI. It's LSS, RISE, and SHI. I have a blooper on my notes. So that is kind of the nuts and bolts of what this project is about, and I would invite any questions you have about the project or questions you have about the board resolution request that is in your packet. I know I've given you a lot of data.
Mm-hmm. Okay, board. Commissioner Lenzmeyer?
Yeah, you're not the only service provider that does things like this. Who else in this area, this is for public information, who else in this area does similar things, and why is this not duplication?
Actually, the housing providers are relatively small in this area in terms of distributing and cash assistance to help with resolving the homeless problem. There are a number of shelter providers and support services providers. The Salvation Army, as you likely know, does shelter work. A Place of Hope does support services work. And TRICAP does some housing work as well. They have chosen to focus on long-term homeless. And then our partners at RISE and some limited housing support services at the Catholic Charities adult program.
You've named 5 people, 5 entities that are involved in this. What differentiates what you do compared to the others?
I think what differentiates the Family Homeless Prevention Project is that we do have a significant focus on homeless prevention. And we follow what's interesting about the way these the way the state of Minnesota guides this project is Minnesota really holds a leadership position in terms of determining what the strategies are with a lot of state and federal funds. And they do so by employing an interagency council that works statewide to support this effort and works across many of the departments at the state level. And so they use the family homeless prevention funding to really establish sort of a very wide net around who participates in making decisions about what the funding should be, how it should be deployed in each of its local jurisdictions, and also advises us around how to address the problem. And in doing that, many providers they sort of choose their area of expertise. And one of the reasons we were asked to step in and help this project is that we were already doing some HUD-funded rapid rehousing. And there wasn't anyone in the community that was serving adults and families with that model.
In the past, when I actually work, I'm a commercial real estate appraiser and a county commissioner when I don't. I have worked on subsidized low-income housing, and the unfortunate aspect of programs like this is that the soft costs are such, with all the reporting requirements, that the private sector can build a comparable project beginning to end for about a third less or more, and the rest is all taken up by reporting requirements and so forth. And how can you explain how your proposal integrates with the rest of them. What I'm hearing you say is that this programming, to put it in English, is that you have to work at staying out of each other's way.
Actually, I would say that's really not true. The homeless problem is large enough in this area that actually there isn't a lot of overlap. In fact, we struggle to meet the need. And I would say that just the evidence that we can only really serve 10% of the eligible households that come to us seeking help. Most of them continue to struggle until they can reapply or find another option. Of course, there are other tiers of this solution to homelessness. Affordable permanent housing is really the solution. And so what we do is we help to build the skills that that households can move up to that step. They're in crisis when they reach us. Their car has broken down. They've had a medical crisis. They've lost their job. Something creates an immediate burden on their rent. And so we're really kind of in the triage mode. We're really the first responders, right? And so if they do have a more debilitating situation that requires long-term subsidy, we help them through that process and build those skills and equip them for the long wait it will take for them to achieve that goal. So it's a really long process, and there is many layers to resolving the homeless issue here and across the state.
At one time, this goes back to Larry Hawes' days, the mid-2004 era or so, Stearns County had one staff member that was assigned to be involved with the homeless population.
Mm-hmm.
So it isn't that we're newbies to all of this.
Right.
We haven't kept up on this. And so what's the differentiation again? You're actually going to be providing housing?
We assist with, so whereas, for example, Salvation Army provides immediate shelter, we can work with those households to get them back into housing. The best way to get people through this crisis is to get them into housing as quickly as possible and then address the other issues they may have. So we help with that process, and that differentiates us from the people that are housing providers like HRA or the people that provide shelter like Salvation Army.
Well, as a younger man, I knew everything, but now at this point in my life, I realize there's significant gaps here. So what I would want to know is, again, how this, I still don't understand the role you're fulfilling, because, you cited 5 agencies, and it reminds me of that old Three Stooges skit where all 3 of them are trying to get through the door at the same time. I just don't see the coordination we need. And in fact, the other nonprofits are competitors.
There's a piece that may, if I might.
Yeah, go ahead.
Lutheran Social Service at this time concentrates on families and concentrates on prevention and rehousing. RISE is concentrating on single adults. Their emphasis is that they are a resource for those who have mental health issues. And so they have sort of a specialized niche in that housing arena. As we know, many households have some mental health issues that contribute to their situation. Catholic Charities concentrates on youth. And so in this project, we focus on what we do best. And so for this project, that's how that differentiation is made. And as there are no other resources aside from emergency assistance, which the county delivers, and long-term homeless, which TRICAP delivers. And so if the solutions that we have for people don't work, they would move on to TRICAP. So those are the differentiations in terms of how we fit together. And We have worked really hard to not duplicate. There isn't enough money to step on each other's toes. And so we economizing and working together, and that's actually the focus of our project, to be a single project rather than having to everybody do the same work over and over again to try and find the right fit. And that's why we have sort of segmented the work so that each group, each funded sub-grantee can do the most focused work.
The part of this, granted, you're dealing with the population that is challenged and have to be brought to a certain level before they can participate in the workforce. Is there a jobs training component to what you are selling?
We don't deliver that, but we work with community partners. Again, that's a really great way that we do not duplicate our efforts. Goodwill Easter Seals does offer some really great opportunities, as well as TRICAP. So we find those resources in the community to do that work that they're funded to do through DEED and other resources.
Thank you for your comments, Ms. Stapley. What do you do? What's your job?
I am the Senior Director of Housing and Supportive Services for Lutheran Social Services across the state. So I actually oversee the staff that work in this grant and oversee the advisory council that we attend the meetings about this. I assist in providing the data that goes into the statewide database system and supervising and supporting the staff.
We're going to get, one crisis at a time. We'll be dealing with the issue as presented first, but I do want to get to immigration. So I'll hold the comments there until we resolve this particular issue. I better shut up and let the
Commissioner Linsmeyer, just you mentioned the challenges of getting these folks into the workforce and allowing them to establish income so that they can then afford their own housing. There must be some other challenges there as well. Are you oftentimes finding criminal activity, drug addiction, other social issues as well?
Those certainly are contributors. And, I guess probably one of the hidden secrets about homelessness is most of the households are working. And there is an income gap because affordability of housing, particularly in this region, is really high. It is one of the most unaffordable regions in the state. And so most of the households we're working with are working.
Okay.
But they may need
let me just say I
income.
appreciate that because we don't want to see those people give up. We want to see those people continue. And I appreciate the support that at least we can keep those people in those jobs and allow them to continue to work.
So moreover, what we're doing is keeping them employed. And so when people are facing crisis, it's sort of like whack-a-mole. They're trying to keep one problem down before another one comes up. And so we're helping them with triage. What should you do first? Are there problem solving? Problem solving is a huge skill that helps in kind of crisis resolution, thinking ahead, who might be my backup for childcare, those sort of things. So people are not very good at that in crisis, so we're kind of their thinking partner to help calm that down, think through the problems, be a resource for them for that kind of, I've got a problem today, can you help me? Because we're not governmental staff, they trust us to reveal these things where they might have a child care issue that they might feel afraid to talk to somebody at the county about. They feel like they can trust us and we'll problem solve with them. So we do a lot of that in the case management and help them hold that job and make sure that they don't lose that job or help them find more income with a higher paying job or a second job.
Okay. Yeah. And then the obvious problem is affordable housing.
Exactly.
And that's a problem for all of us, the cities, the counties, the state, and just families in general. And, that's a big challenge in this area.
Okay, let's talk about affordability. We have things like Minnesota Housing Finance Agency. We have, there are HUD programs. How do you incorporate that into what you're doing?
Well, we have the COC coordinator, the Continuum of Care. That's a mandated body from the federal government, from HUD, and they sit on our advisory council. And help us stay in touch with what's happening at Central Minnesota Housing Partnership, who is the host for that role. And so we also participate in the continuum of care, which is really the body that's promoting and supporting the development of housing projects. So it's a tough sell here to build affordable housing. There just isn't a lot of development that's active right here, but there's certainly a lot of encouragement for developers to do that.
I think there's some differences of opinion here in that you talk about not only housing, but that relates to cost of living. And the reason, one of the reasons that the attraction for the immigrant population is the cost of housing. So we have conflicting stories here. It's apparently it's perceived that it's affordable for them, but at the same time, you're telling me it's not affordable. What am I missing?
Yeah, I get my data from, reports that people that study this issue, and I recall I think it was sometime last year, there was an article in the Times around kind of that this was an area that had one of the higher ratios of rent to income. So those would be other bodies aside from our organization that are making that determination.
It's conceivable that may be the case. The reality is that, on the income side, wage level and so forth, but, not very far away, probably where you live. The cost of living is substantially higher, and wages are equally higher. But it really comes down to, for folks to have, we're not going to get everybody at the same income level that, let's say, nonprofit administrators do.
Mm-hmm.
And the real challenge is on the jobs end.
Yeah.
And until we have a more skilled workforce, we're not going to see any changes there. I'm reluctant to approve as presented. I would like to hear from the other nonprofits. Here's the position that the five of us are in, okay? Nonprofits come forward and ask for funding of their various programs. All of them are doing God's own work, and we're in a position of having to pick winners. I don't know that we always have the most information that we need to make those choices. You handed out 3 different documents here. Obviously, we're certainly amazing people, but we're not digesting that information that quickly. I would suggest that perhaps maybe even opening this up to an RFP.
It has been.
Yes.
Okay, and what were the other responses then?
At this RFP, the responders were funded.
Well,
All
I understand
responders were
that,
funded.
but who were the other respondents?
There were no others.
There weren't any? Oh, you're the only game in town.
No, RISE and Catholic Charities. And we applied as well. So we don't have a gimme. We are, even though we're the grant holder, we apply to the committee just as any other provider would.
Let's talk about governance.
I only have one copy, but I'm happy to talk about
Okay,
it.
Commissioner Clark.
Sorry.
I know you have a lot of questions, and so it's important that you feel comfortable with getting us. But just having done a lot of work on this related issue, And I know, I agree that it's hard when we got a lot of stuff in front of us to
Yeah.
digest it. I do want to commend you for the community partnership, having 3 different entities coming together for one proposal and then specifying who's going to do what is helpful. And then the continued opportunity of continuing quality improvement in terms of how the community groups work together. And our area, actually, we have to partner. We've got so many counties and jurisdictions, and that's important, especially as we have a metro area and we get rural real fast, having those services taken care of. So I wanted to note that because I'm not sure it came out entirely in here. And we do have a wage gap, and it might be worth us having a presentation at some point between our housing and what our wages are in the area. Right now, people can get jobs, but a lot of people are working 2 or 3 jobs. And I know we're going to hear something about child care assistance plans coming up here in a minute, and whether you can get child care and all that. So it's complicated, and it would certainly, from our standpoint, be a little bit easier if we could kind of see the whole picture and who's really doing what, and at some point that might be helpful. I know that Lee wants to go into governance too. I'm just wondering, because of this grant from the state perspective, what are the limitations on overhead? It's always good to be able to, I could see the numbers here, the public can't, but what's the percentage of what's going back in direct services to the people that are being served? So if you could talk about that, because I think that's something we all care a lot about.
The state limits that to 10% of the grant, and in our proposal to the state, it's slightly less than that.
And that's for all 3 organizations who agreed to?
It's for the entire project.
Okay. And Steve, I know, has been having his hand up for a while, sorry.
All right. Commissioner
The
Nutt?
10% is for what part?
Administrative.
Okay, but your staffing,
Right. The whole
when you
That's
take
direct.
that into account, it's like 56% of what
It's
you're
direct
proposing.
service so that would be screening, intake, case management, follow-up.
Right, so
But we don't keep all of the staffing.
But I think
That's
going to that point,
distributed.
that's part of what I was trying to get. Can you talk a little bit about, there's the overhead, which is the administration. I know the grant, obviously, part of what the service being provided is that interaction. But it's helpful for us to know what that is versus just some number that makes it look
Yes.
like it's really expensive. Because you've got the piece that helps
Yeah.
with the stability as well as
So
the council. So if
it's-
you could help us better
Yeah, it's a little
understand
bit
it.
about the model, and the model is guided by the recommendations of Minnesota Housing. Minnesota Housing holds a philosophy that in the past, there was very common to give 1 month of assistance. That didn't actually resolve the problem. And so they said, don't do that anymore. We want you to help people long enough that it resolves the issue. So that costs a little bit more money, both in staff time and in direct assistance. And in another bigger picture issue, as the efforts of the federal government to prioritize who to help with the various kinds, that's another kind of really huge coordinating piece, is coordinated entry into the homeless system. It's much more organized and targeted, so what part of funding goes to what resource. It's very complicated. It's a complicated system, there's no question about that. But the budget document you have does indicate the FTE that is funded for each of the interventions. There is a 0.85 staff that's split between 3 organizations that provides prevention services. There is 1.01 FTE split between 3 organizations, and those are people that are working directly with clients. The administrative portion covers about 0.17 of the grant.
Really quickly, just because the number otherwise could seem pretty big, when the personnel number includes wage and benefits, right?
Wage and benefits, yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And then I just have one quick, hopefully quick one. So, what would you say is the average amount then of the families served that they would receive in a year's time?
They may
Is there a
have,
limit, or-
well, what we try to do with, again, we target the household depending on the barriers. And so probably the most amount of rent they would get would be over a 3 or 4 month period if they have very entrenched barriers to sustainable housing. And we would use a step-down formula. So we may pay the entire first month rent if they're homeless to get them into housing and pay the deposit. And it's, it's getting harder and harder to just pay 1 month's deposit in this market. And then we would step down the rent. And so that doesn't go to the household, it goes directly to the landlord.
Right, yeah.
So the average, I think what we did in our preparation for the RFP that was brought out to the community was to identify kind of what that rental amount would be, and we are informed on that by HUD and other sources that identify kind of what a fair market rent is.
Okay, and then just lastly, when you, on your budget sheet that you gave us at the end here, do you have, when you calculate this out, do you have a range of like how many households you anticipate are going to be served with
Yes,
funding?
what we hope to do is serve 119 households
Oh, okay, there you go.
with that,
Okay, thank you.
over the course of the grant.
Okay.
And of course, we try to solve the housing problem for the long run. That is our real goal, is not to just be a Band-Aid, but to really resolve the housing issue for the long haul. That's our goal. So that, and it happens that people have to come back into the system, but our hope is that we can get at some of the root cause and find them the options for housing that they can sustain on their own.
Let me interrupt then. What about those families then that are in crisis, that maybe just need that gap for several months? You also do meet that need, correct?
Yes, for the one time. That's often prevention.
Yep.
You're not interrupting, you're the chair.
I don't want to step on anybody's toes.
Oh, go ahead, I'll get even with you later.
I believe that. Commissioner Bergen.
As I mentioned, we would be happy to, this is a big conversation around,
Yes.
around kind of understanding how the homeless system in this county works. And so I would be happy to spearhead further discussion to bring before you, if that would be helpful. And I would work with, of course, the county staff to organize that. But it's a big issue, and we are a part. We are not the whole. But it is a complex circumstance, and we really are working well together with the other community partners.
Actually, you're a pretty big part, looking at, for example, while Catholic Charities is a larger organization, you're no slouch, and you have a national presence, and you have related entities that are actually profit generating. So,
Well, we actually are limited to the state of Minnesota, and our body is owned by the 6 synods of the ELCA. So our organization itself is just in Minnesota.
I'm not prepared to take action on this, and at this time, obviously, this has gone on longer than we had anticipated. I'd like to see this on a future agenda to discuss this in more detail, and I do want to get your perspective on the role that you have played in the immigration issue. The immigration issue has had significant impact in this particular area. Well, we're treating you the same as we do other counties. The issue here is different than other counties, and Lutheran Social Services has played a role in the immigration matter. So your perspective is, well, it's an unrelated matter. Well, it's something that's festering in our community. You had something to do with it, and if not now, we're having that discussion, when? You can take the position, well, it's unrelated, just take care of this and we'll talk about it later. I think that we've taken that avenue perhaps more often than we should have, and so I'd move to table this matter so that we can digest all the additional information we've got, and I want to talk to you folks some
Mr.
more.
Chair, before
Okay.
before we go any further, we're in July now, the grant started on the 1st, and I think one of the things, just to get some information, is how is that impacting services or the resources that are, regardless of entity, that are designed for the people in our community?
So we are not permitted to enter contract with the state of Minnesota until the counties served have signed a board resolution. If it were to proceed without Stearns County, at this point, it would be up to the state of Minnesota if they were to award the grant without Stearns County. That is likely the next step, but.
And I'm sorry,
There's
have you-
3 other counties.
Have the other counties done the
It's-
resolution?
Yes.
Or are we first?
Yes, so
Okay.
Wright, Benton, and Sherburne have all signed a board resolution and are prepared to proceed.
Well, at least this area is partially covered. We don't get universal agreement on associated issues. For example, Benton County is choosing not to participate in the airport effort. But I want to table this, and your administrators, you know, this is something you have to deal with. This job is no picnic.
Yeah. Might I inquire about what additional information would be helpful for the board?
I'm still not understanding the alleged integration of the other folks that do somewhat similar work, and I perceive that, you know, I perceive that we've got some duplication here, and people are rightfully entitled to criticize us for that. So it won't be, I don't see, in the near term, holding up a decision causes some angst. In the long term, the public needs to know this, and we also need to get into the, you don't see the immigration issues associated, I do.
With this
We'll never
particular-
agree on that,
yeah.
but that's how it
With
goes.
this particular funding source, there are almost no immigrant families that have sought out this service for support.
Gosh, you got a new market.
There's probably more to say about that, but it just hasn't been a part of this service set historically. And so if that's your concern, that this is being deployed to support refugee families, we don't have the record-keeping system in place because the state does not permit us to separate that out. So, but anecdotally, I've inquired, and there is no crossover. But the state would not permit us to exclude that population.
I move we table this issue.
Just, Mr. Chair, point of order, this item is on the table, so to take up the resolution, take a motion and a second to remove it from
I'm
the table.
actually moving to remove it from the table and to vote to support the proposed, to pass the proposed resolution, recognizing we've got some longer conversations about some issues, and I think Commissioner Lensmeyer, I hope you hear me saying, I as someone who also has been pretty actively engaged in some of what's happened in our region that's both positive and challenging, I would hope, regardless of this vote, that we keep looking for ways to have that conversation.
Okay. Well, let me first of all comment, we've been on this agenda, I believe, almost 40 minutes. We had scheduled 15 minutes for it, and if we move on to immigration and refugee resettlement.
Be here all day.
Yes, and we have another long item, I believe, later on in the agenda as well. I think it's best if we go ahead and take a motion of moving it and doing something with it. So Commissioner Clark, again, your motion?
My motion is to take this item from the table, and I move receiving the report and supporting the proposed resolution.
Okay.
And again, this is my one side commentary, in part because the state has already done significant vetting. The community partners have come together. And I want to recognize that Commissioner Lensmeyer, I'm hearing, definitely wanted to better understand and see that, and so that doesn't diminish any of that at all.
Okay. So we have a motion, or do we have a second?
just a point of question, is it, so the person who put it on the table last time has to make a
No.
motion, take it off the table?
Nope.
No?
That's only for a motion to reconsider. A person who was on the side that prevailed has to go ahead and do a motion to prevail, not on the table.
Yeah, I have several questions
Well,
here.
But we got
I'll
a
sec-
motion.
I'll
Wait,
second
we
it
got
just
we
so we
need
can
Right, just so we can have the discussion.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to take it off the table and to move the item forward. Commissioner Murphy.
Well, I have several questions. I'm along with Commissioner Lenzmeyer on this. We're given all this information. We've had that discussion before where we're given information all of a sudden at the board meeting that we don't take action at that board meeting. This wasn't too many months ago. This should have been in our packet. I need more time than this to digest and go through all of this information. And then the other thing is, you said you can't break it down by metro area. Could we at least get it broken down by St. Cloud metro area versus the rural area as to where this money is going?
We can certainly give that a try. It gets a little hard to extract and sort because the reporting mechanism in the data system is not set up to do that, but we will certainly give that a try.
Yeah, and I'm not sure about the labeling on this. You got a column that says prevention and rapid housing, and then I thought I heard you say something about 217,000 of the grant went to overhead.
No.
And I'm not quite understanding the titles of the columns there either, what those mean.
The
That should
administrative
have been
portion, which you
explained.
might think of as overhead, is 37,908.
Okay. And then,
For biennium.
okay. Then
Yeah.
also, just looking through this quickly, something that jumped out at me is that there's only 3% of these that are veterans.
Yes.
And so they look to me like they're ignored. And I mean, that's
No.
just
Yeah,
looking
and
through
it-
here.
I commented earlier that actually that's a success story because there are so many other efforts that are in place to address housing issues for veterans. There are VASH vouchers, there is the MACV program, there is the direct work of the VA. So there is a lot of resources for them. So that they haven't fallen off into this category is actually good news. We do a ton of outreach for them to make sure that we're catching them as well. But they're actually, that is an area where there is a lot of duplication. And so we would welcome to serve more, but their needs are actually being met.
And just to reiterate, I think that we did earlier in the year make a stipulation that when we were given this kind of extensive information, that it was automatically not taken action on at that board meeting. Does anybody else remember that?
No, but
I can't remember.
doesn't mean it didn't happen. I mean, we're old people.
Hey, speak for
There
yourself.
there was a discussion about that, but I don't think there was any policy or any motion or anything made. It was made well known that we didn't want to have this amount of information presented.
Okay. I have a quick question about timeline. And so we're looking at this proposal here, and the timeline on this proposal is annual?
No,
Biannual?
Biannual. So
Okay.
the period would be July 1, 2019 to June 30th, 2021.
Okay.
And then just one question for point of clarification. So Lutheran Social Services is a grantee, but all three agencies are utilizing the same funding?
Correct.
Lutheran Social Services, Catholic Charities, and RISE.
Yes,
So this is a partnership between you three for this biennium
correct.
grant? Okay.
Correct.
Thank you.
Guided by this Community Advisory Committee and the state.
Okay. I'm just going to comment in the discussion here before we take the vote. And first of all, I appreciate you coming in today, and I appreciate the discussion we've had here on the board. I think that is the reason why we did the table, is to get more information. From the information that I've heard, I mean, it's difficult. You have many challenges. I feel that, perhaps, there could be adjustments made as far as the way the money could be spent and how the money is being spent, but you have to work within the framework that you have. And I want to say I do appreciate that. I want to continue to see that we look at these issues, we vet these issues, but I'm willing, because of the good that is being done and the way the agencies are working, I'm willing to move this forward as well, so I'm willing to take the vote, so. Anybody other discussion, comments? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Nay.
Roll call, please.
Commissioner Clark,
Aye.
Commissioner Morgan,
Nay.
Commissioner Lenzmeyer.
Nay.
Commissioner Notch.
Aye.
Commissioner Persky.
Aye. Motion passes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I would invite additional opportunities to appear before the board to present information, and we'd be happy to forward our regular reporting data to Melissa and Julie to forward as well.
And when we have the immigration discussion, bring board members. You folks are, your board is doing to you what we routinely do to our staff and send them out to catch the ammunition, and then once we come through and check the bodies, take credit for victory. So at some point, soon, want to have that immigration discussion. Lutheran Social Services has played a significant role. It's become very controversial in this area. And it's an opportunity for you to state your case.
We had a board member who wished to be here today but was not able to. She is.
Oh, bring more than one.
Or your community advisory folks.
I want to hear the thought process.
Okay, Commissioner Morgan?
Yeah, I would like administration to look back and see if we can find that area where we had this discussion last time about being presented so much information right at the board meeting, because I'd like to review that, what was all happened there.
Thank you for your time.
Okay.
Thank you for your time.
All right, we'll continue with Human Services, I believe. Do we want to do this meeting and then finish the Human Services?
Okay.
All right.
Dwayne, we can put up with that.
Mr. Chair, I think Commissioner Lenzmeyer could take on that role.
No, I didn't have coffee at home.
Okay. Good morning.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, members of the board. For some of you, my name is Janet Goligoski. I'm the Gateway Services Division Director, and I'm appearing on behalf of Melissa Huberty, the Human Services Administrator. So before you today, there's one Human Services consent item. You'll find that on page 156, item G1. It's for claims paid on behalf of Human Services clients during the last 2 weeks of June.
Okay. Questions about that? Otherwise, I'll look for a motion to move that forward.
I'll move it.
Okay, Commissioner Mergen?
Second.
Commissioner Notch? Other discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.
Thank you. The next item to appear today is on page 158, item H1, and we are requesting approval to submit the Child Care Assistance Plan. The Child Care Assistance Plan is required every 2 years, and it is essentially required that we post it for 30 days of public comment, and we collect that commentary, and we also include that with the submission of the plan. If the plan is submitted prior to that time, we then forward those comments so that it is addended to that report. The Child Care Assistance Plan supports families in two different ways. We provide funding support for families who are searching for work, who are working, and or who are doing school activities that would result in working and employment. The other way that we also support families is through the basic sliding fee scale. That is a separate allocation. That is a capped allocation, and it does require a copay. And we currently have around 257 children that we are serving. Unfortunately, we have unmet needs in Stearns County as the allocation doesn't fully cover. And we have an additional 209 families that are currently on a waiting list and have been so since around May 2018.
So we're going to move this forward for the comment period, correct?
we would like to submit the plan as well as post it for the 30-day comment period.
Okay.
I'll move that.
Commissioner Clark?
Second.
Commissioner Notch, any further discussion on that? If not, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion passes.
Thank you.
Any other questions, folks? Okay. Have a good day. With that, are we ready for a break, folks? Okay, we'll recess for about 5 minutes. Okay, we are back from our break. We're down to item I on the agenda, environmental services. Good morning.
Good morning, Shelley Benson, Environmental Services Director. I have Tim Oswald with me today to talk about Tri-County information. There's quite a bit that's occurred since our last meeting, and I'm just going to hand it over to Tim.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, members of the board. This morning I kind of wanted to give you guys an update on a few things that Tri-County has been working on. One of the first and foremost things I want to talk about is ag plastic, give you all an update on where we're at with that program. We started in first week of May, ran into some problems, with some rain and a few days like that. But overall, Republic is very anxious to get through the first pick. We are estimating that we're probably at the 70% mark, getting through the first initial cleanup or pick. To date, as of July 1st, we've collected about 255,000 pounds of plastic, and total budget spent is right around $7,000. So we're right in where we anticipated to be, and we're hoping to move things forward. I have been getting many phone calls about how can we speed this up. A lot of impatient producers, obviously. I have asked Republic to present to me maybe an idea or a plan that, maybe we can speed this up and get through this a little faster. I haven't got anything yet. When I do, I would like to bring that to the board to get your recommendations and thoughts. I imagine it might entail putting another truck on the route, just trying to get through it quicker. So I hopefully will be bringing that. In front of you here, I do have one picture. I did go out and I followed the truck around for about a half a day just to make sure that I knew and understood what's going on the farms. And this is just pretty typical of what you see. The truck pulls up, the dumpster's there, and it's jammed full. And right beside it, you probably have another dumpster load of plastic waiting to get picked up. Unfortunately, when Republic shows up, they don't have time to sit and wait for the farmer to reload that plastic into the dumpster. So that was kind of the initial thought, that we dump it once, we come back and we dump it again, and hopefully they're cleaned up at that point. This farm, it looks like there's probably another dumpster load sitting there. There's other farms that have probably 2 or 3 loads sitting next to it. So it is something that we'd like to get cleaned up. I have had conversations with the MPCA about it. They're concerned that this material's been sitting there in some cases up to a year since Revolution cleaned this stuff up last summer. So, like I said, I have asked Republic to bring something to me as a plan that we can, maybe speed this up and get this picked up.
Yeah, and with that, as far as the schedule, I don't know the operations as far as, is there any particular time when you're going to see more ag plastic rather than go every other month? Is that, the high volume times when they're pulling the feed out of the plastic that we need to maybe go monthly opposed to every other month? Just maybe the schedule would help, the piling up, stockpiling of the plastic.
Yes, Mr. Chair. When we initially sent out the survey last December, we had asked, about scheduling. Is there a certain time of year that is more so than others? And we pretty much had answers all over the board.
Okay.
It really, there was no trend that we could pinpoint as to that. Some of the larger dairies obviously are using more. In those cases, they've requested an additional dumpster, and we've got plans. I don't know. I know Republic is planning July 1st. They were going to start delivering the extra dumpsters and new dumpsters to customers. So if they do have a lot of plastic, hopefully we can get another dumpster to them soon.
Okay. Tim, just a spur of the moment invitation. I don't know if you would care to be a guest star on Chasm at the end of the month.
Sure.
Maybe this would be a topic that we could have open mic, and then people could call in and hear the concerns. And if we could get you on before leave, we could maybe, get some.
Won't happen.
Okay. I'll snip the wire, but we'll go ahead and.
I have ways to get even.
We'll see if we can maybe get you on the end of the month. We'll see if we'll arrange that, okay?
Sure, that'd be great.
Board, other questions?
Maybe just a quick one here. Do you think it's going to take, in order to get them to put another truck on, a renegotiated cost or fee, I'm guessing?
Mr. Chair, Member Commissioner Notch, I have had that conversation with them. They suggested an hourly rate for another additional truck. I wasn't very impressed with that answer, and I asked them to come back with something different that we could hopefully match up to our contracted rates. So,
Okay.
Good job.
Yeah, this is a challenge, and we'd like to continue to see if we can address it, so thank you.
The next item on my agenda, I wanted to update you on the Pope Douglas contract addendum that was proposed several months ago. I know in June, we had a meeting, and the board kind of came up with some ideas, and we submitted a counteroffer to Pope Douglas on June 16th, I believe. We have not heard anything from Pope Douglas in regards to that counteroffer. They do have a meeting scheduled for next Thursday, I believe, where I believe it's on the agenda. So we're hoping to hear something back by that point. We do have a meeting with the Tri-County Solid Waste officers scheduled for the following day to discuss it and see if there is any kind of feedback. And then at that point, we'd like to bring it to each individual board and just see where we're at before any decisions are made. So,
Okay.
if there's any questions on that.
Any questions on that contract?
What is the, I hate, honest, I hate doing this to staff, but what is the breakdown of stuff to Pope Douglas to landfill?
I believe in Stearns County, Troy Freihammer might be a little more up to date on the numbers, but I believe we were at about 55% in Stearns County going to Pope Douglas.
Mr. Chair, typically we're hearing between, depending on time of year, it will range between 55 to 60, which kind of leads into our other part of our conversation, designation. What's the expectation for designation? We designate an incineration facility. Should we be leveling the playing field on the other end for designating, landfills? Go to this one because can we get a better rate if we start to figure out those things? If we're trying to balance this all out and level playing fields, maybe we need to have another type of conversation.
I think a level playing field is optimistic. What I want to see us continue to pursue the philosophy of split risk, meaning the level of regulation and the momentum of regulation is different from landfills to burners. We're somewhat caught in the middle. So if we can keep that in the 50-50 proximity, worst case, we're only in half the trouble, no matter which, what's happening in either end. So split risk, it's as good as we can do.
Mr. Chair, that kind of leads into my third point, talking about solid waste planning. Every 10 years, we're required to do that by the state. I have been in contact with the MPCA, just looking at how can we start initializing this and planning that. We have had initial discussions. We discussed, are we comfortable designating the 50-50? And if we are, do we want to designate actual landfills? And that could lead down a whole different road, but that's just something that we're looking at and working on. Long-term planning, I had a very good conversation with them yesterday about what direction the agency is kind of trending. Maybe, I don't want to say in the immediate future, but 5 to 10 years, what direction are they trending and which way are they looking to kind of push the envelope? So, they're working on some things and hopefully that'll all flesh itself out in time too.
Commissioner Clark?
I want to thank you for having that conversation. One of the things that came up at the kind of the tail end of our work group was, and actually it came from Troy, one of the suggestions was is that we might want to consider a longer plan, having a consultant and looking 30 years out, partially to remove, this is not his words, this will be mine, more immediate political ramifications, but also to kind of be a bit more of a driver. And to think about where we're going, since one of the goals also is waste reduction, and how does that end up impacting some of the the overall amounts that might be going places, but also trying to figure out from our region, what do we think is important? And some of it is bringing down the costs. I mean, as you were talking about with the haulers, among other things, and that's put some burdens on them.
Commissioner Clark, and you know I'm very much in agreement to that. By all means, we need to be talking about waste in the long-term picture, not just the immediate into the can and where does it go, but where, you know, what
So to speak.
Exactly, all right? And the other thing is that we don't operate in isolation in that there's 87 counties, and we should be working together with the state of Minnesota for a picture for the state, not just what's happening in our county, and perhaps even across the nation, and where we're going with consumer products and some of the things that we're actually creating that's going to go into the incinerator or into the landfill. So big picture items are things we need to look at, and Tim and I appreciate that conversation and making those folks, you know, open up that crystal and look that far down the road, so thank you. Anyone else?
Yep. Yes, Mr. Chair, the last item I had, I wanted to talk to you a little bit about an organics collection program. I'm kind of in the initial stages of putting things together and what can we do to help promote that and waste reduction. Currently, right now, the school district in St. Cloud is a very aggressive plan to collect organics, which we support. And I'm looking at hopefully maybe pulling in some of the larger commercial operators such as grocery stores, things like that. Something that we could, you know, not so much the residential, dumpster size collection. There's several of the waste companies I've talked to in the area that are very interested in starting this program and working with us if we can get something going. I've talked to several businesses informally. I don't want to sign anybody up or quote any prices or anything like that. But that, as you all know, it all comes down to money. How much is this going to cost me versus doing the right thing? What I'm hoping to propose to you, and I don't have anything concrete or anything, but if I could round up enough interest in this, if we could put together some kind of a program where we would help, similar to Egg Plastic, a 3-year program to kind of get them started, get them going. It'd be a sliding scale of help. Like I said, I don't have any firm numbers or anything, but if that's something that the board would like me to pursue, I would definitely like to get into that and maybe come back at another later date and present something a little more concrete and firm. One of the things that we do have on the horizon that I just want to make the board aware of, there's an issue called PFAS. I don't know if any of you have heard of it. It's a polymer that is being found in leachate and some surface waters that is causing a major concern for these compost companies, and how do they deal with it. That's an emerging issue both on the state and federal level, so we'll just continue to monitor that, but that may be something that throws a wrench into things.
Yeah, explain that. That sounds like a new nasty. What have we been missing?
PFAS is a polymer that was developed by 3M, from what I understand. It was a non-stick kind of Teflon type polymer that was used in obviously cooking pans, a lot of containers for food containers and things like that. And right now they're being composted, and this polymer does not break down.
No.
And
But what items is this, how is this showing up? Is it coming off the pan into the food and then into the compost?
Mr. Chair, sometimes, and you've probably seen it, you'll see those little cardboard boats that people put food in. A lot of those have a nonstick coating.
Yes. Oh, yeah.
So they then recycle that. My neighbor actually works on those little cardboard boxes, and so we've had this conversation. And that's part of what they expect and they want for the food service. So that's a demand on their side, but then you try to recycle it, and it's creating this problem within the leachate. And then how do you manage that? Well, it's not just in organics landfill situation. It's in other landfills as well. So leachate is a problem, but the organics is kind of the new area, so that's where they're regulating them now. and not necessarily, the same regulation isn't across the board, which we've always had issues with. So we're struggling with, they have leachate in many ways and many forms, but not being regulated across the board equally. So even though we're now promoting organics, they're having more regulation in that area, and yet they're not regulating it the same way in landfills. So, yeah, so we're pushing where we want things to go, being pushed into the places we don't necessarily want them to go. So it's a struggle.
And the agency is working actively to address this. It was a major concern and a topic that we discussed in depth, so.
Okay. Anything else?
This is an observation, it just sounds like a complaint. Recently had someone contact me, and what their concern is that in certain situations, they're actually turned away from delivery of hazardous waste. And I appreciate that there's rules and regulations that have to be followed, but with all rules and regulations, there's a judgment component. And when you turn away people that are that in practice are delivering hazardous waste, and you turn them away after we've invested all that we have in that whole effort, well, where does that hazardous waste wind up? That's a pretty straightforward question to ask, and I don't care about Regulation 3.7-706. This is dumb, and, so have that chat with those concerned and lighten up. God, let the sheriff be the bad guy.
Mr. Chair, I want to thank Commissioner Lenzmeyer for bringing that to our attention, and the fact that we were able to have the email transaction with that constituent was very helpful. There are very small quantity generator business rules. We need to have that conversation about how to help people dispose of the waste properly. Even if you're a very small quantity generator, we have certain things we have to do. But how do we make that easier for them? How do we help them through the process ahead of time? How do we make sure that we can still take that waste and not get it, put somewhere that we don't want it? So we are having those conversations, trying to come up with more solutions, ways for staff to get that material and not have it leave the facility. Residential is not the problem. It's those very small quantity generators that are businesses, but we are actively working on other ways to manage it so that it doesn't leave the facility. So more options, helping them if there is a process that they need to follow. How do we help it in a efficient way so that they don't get turned off by the process?
Here's a suggestion. Approach it as if you were a well-intentioned customer that is trying to do the right thing, but winds up frustrated by, you got to fill out this form, we've got to do that permit, we got to do this, we got to do. The idea is to get this crap out of the waste stream. End of story.
Commissioner Lenzmeyer, Commissioner Persky, board members, we do understand that, and we are diligently working to get everyone to recognize that issue when they're accepting the waste through the facility. So thank you, and we are addressing that.
Pretend you're the customer, okay? And you don't know this, and hopefully never have to learn. Accommodate the need.
Yes, we appreciate it. Thank you.
Anything
Boy,
else?
it's been a great therapy session.
Yeah. It's only going to get better. Just one last comment. Shelley, With the Anderson Farm, this is a
Yes.
controversial topic, and so I just appreciate, the support, on both sides of the argument, and so we're going to be open and to the public as far as receiving information and also doing our diligence to accommodate the Andersons, and we'll let the process work out. So just keep us informed.
And to that point, Mr. Chair, we did have the parties that had questioned and petitioned came up and asked for additional information that we had. We made sure we provided all that information to them. Things that I talked to, Jake Pitty was here from the assessor's office, so we are talking about property values,
Right.
making sure we understand water appropriation permit process, kind of what's happening in that Bonanza Valley with their water budget and how that will affect this situation, the manure management plan issue, and then any efforts related to smell and how those are being managed through the farming operation. So we're going to try to make sure we outline that really clearly, both for those constituents as well as the board, so it's cleaner and clearer for everyone to understand that process.
Yeah, and then I think we want to be careful about misinformation.
Correct.
And rumor, and that oftentimes works against us. And because even like with the manure management plan, did they not have one?
Yes, they do
Yeah,
have a manure
yeah,
management
that's-
plan.
And that, when they were
And-
talking about not having one, I thought they had
No,
one.
it's,
Yeah.
you're correct. It's
Right,
required
exactly.
for them to have it. It's a process. But if their concern is the soil type, then we want to make sure we're providing that information so that they're clear as to what soil types they're dealing with, that they're outside of the sensitive areas. Those are the things that we want to make sure we're getting that information out to them so that everyone has it, it's correct, and we're all working from the same place.
Okay.
Just want to thank staff and the planning commission, I mean, and the Andersons, there's been a lot of work on this. I think that, to reinforce what you just said, Mr. Chair, the process is important. There are some very, I think we've all been getting contacted, some very strongly held values and beliefs around some of this, and there may be an educational feature. I know we've talked about this before, that we may want to consider, given the controversial nature, even with the staff recommendation and even with the vote of the planning commission, and not wanting to unduly hold anything up for the farm, we may want to have a public hearing on this, because it would give us an opportunity to make sure we're not having a de facto public hearing during our open comment period, leading up to. So just want to throw that out. I mean, we've been staff have done a great job about helping us with the educational pieces. Well, Mr. Chair, you serve on the planning commission, the rest of us don't, and I think if staff can help us with something concise with the information and help the public learn. We don't want to have, kind of like we did earlier today, we don't want to have the appearance of ramming anything through. We want people to see the due diligence that's been done, and the EQB process may or may not help with that. And so I just want to throw that out. I think if we're talking about it now, we don't have to make things more complicated, but we can actually assist with the educational process, including, frankly, for ourselves.
But we can hardly resist.
Oh, okay. And I want to just, and I would again, if you have the opportunity to get down to the Anderson Farms, I would recommend that. All the planning commission members had been there, I've been there, and it's worth seeing and to give you an idea of what actually is going to take place, and the location of the site at which it's proposed, so.
Absolutely.
Yeah, if I can comment too, I've toured their place, visited with them. I mean, it's an operation that probably, is in the upper 5% as far as, managing their enterprise for as large as it already is, and for, if it's appropriate, doing the right thing. I mean, I know they care about their community, and I'm sure they take it to heart when people bring up, negative comments about them. But, and I think what people don't realize, they're not just providing a food source, they're providing medical or research, through different organizations that are using their, the hogs to conduct medical research, which I think a lot of people maybe don't know that, but that is also part of what they do.
And that's where I think the public education piece of this is important. Just like the conversation we were having earlier, we're going to have on other issues. Sometimes it helps us and helps our constituents better understand, so we can actually help people move forward in a positive way. I mean, I think, again, I just want to commend what they've been attempting to do within the rules and regulations and with an eye towards the environmental challenges. But I'm not sure that I'm quite sure people don't know that.
Yes, and that operation does not just connect us to the local butcher shop, but they've got things throughout the nation and throughout the world.
Right.
And so they're on the front edge of the industry, so.
It could be worse. Tulare County, California. County seat is Visalia. Visalia, for you sports fans, has a minor league baseball team. That's where Kent Hrbek played at one time. The Tulare County is a little short of 4 times larger than Stearns County. Has a population of 500,000 people. They have 900,000 cows. It's remarkable. Oh, their system's far from perfect, but there are people with bigger cows to fry than what we've got.
Okay. All right. Is that it?
And that's all I have, unless you had anything for me.
They have the World Dairy Expo.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, one of the last items we have on the agenda here is through administration is the conversation and the resolution about the airport authority. I don't know, Mike, are you going to initiate that?
I sure can, Mr. Chair. And just as a reminder, the board laid this on the table at their last meeting too. But as a reminder, in 2017 session, I think the state of Minnesota funded an airport optimization study, which was completed through 2018 and then presented to the interested parties in January of 2019, and then again to this board on April 23rd. And that was an extensive study, as you can see. It took up a large amount of your packet. But 2 significant things that came out of that study is that really a business plan was created with a number of steps to, in their words, reduce and eventually eliminate the current operating deficit. And another important recommendation was to change the governance model to a regional airport authority, because it's the most effective method to optimize the operations, I guess, and increase the economic impact that is currently actually quite high from the airport. And so after hearing that study in April, the board directed me to meet with other county administrators and the city administrator and come up with next steps toward creating that airport authority. And so what's before you today is a resolution that is not the final step, but it would establish a committee, and what we would want is one commissioner from Stearns County, a commissioner from Sherburne County who has already been appointed, and someone from the city of St. Cloud as well. And both those entities have already adopted this resolution, and they would they would then in turn find 3 other members to come and help on this ad hoc committee, which would create the enabling resolution that would eventually create an airport authority. At that point, if 3 bodies agreed on the enabling resolution, then it would need to be approved by the FAA, and then we could be put in place. And you can see in the resolution it does establish a few things that are important, and we wanted to make sure that these were established at the beginning here, so some of these key points were well understood before we got into the nuts and bolts of an enabling resolution. And so you can see there that the city of St. Cloud will continue to support the airport with a subsidy at least, or at the current level, or less if not necessary, because as you know in the study that subsidy was shown to decline over years. There is also a local option sales tax pledged to the airport, and what that typically does is funds capital projects, but typically what it does is it funds the match to federal money, because most of the capital projects on the airport are funded by the federal government, and that sales tax money typically is the match, and those federal programs are usually a 10% match. And then it says that the important piece, the important work of this ad hoc committee would be to recommend the composition of the Airport Authority Board, and then the priorities of the new authority, which are really laid out in the plan that was created by Baldwin. So that it does take care of, I think, some of the issues that at least were important to me as we entered into these discussions. And we needed to be clear about some of these things that would allow us to really get into the nuts and bolts of what the authority would look like. And again, that resolution was laid on the table, so your point of order would be, first off, to remove it from the table, to have that discussion.
Okay. We need somebody to take that off the table.
I'll move to remove it from the table, being I
Second.
placed it there.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, we're back on again. Did you have anything else to add?
I think I can certainly answer questions if there are some, if I can, but no, nothing else.
Okay, board members, where do we start?
Well, if I could, you know, I noticed on page 247, you know, where it makes the comments, you know, when it comes to the operating, the financials, the governance, you know, doesn't appear to affect the financials, depending on whether the city owns it, county, regional authority. You know, so I'm not sure if there's not a reason why even the city at this point hasn't created its own airport commission to, you know, being it's been running at an operating deficit, you would think that would have floated to the top a little bit and said, well, let's pay a little more attention to it, but, you know, from that, my take on it is that the deficit, you know, is a fairly large amount, and I'm not sure if the city at any point has, you know, already started taking any actions to maybe correct some of this, or if this is just a wait and see to see if this regional authority gets created.
Yep.
And, you know, that will help. The thing is, if in 10 years, if it's still running at a $800,000-$900,000 operating deficit, what's the end game?
Is that a question for me?
Well, no, I'm just posing it. You know, it's such an unknown.
Commissioner, I see it as an unknown, but in the plan that was laid out, they do show that if you take these steps, and I know from that there are some very obvious steps that can be taken to reduce that deficit.
Right, and that's kind of, I'm surprised those haven't, you know, they seem to be floated right to the top. If, you know, the way it's run right now, you'd think that would already be in negotiations, but.
And I think that demonstrates, in a way, demonstrates the point that the consultants are trying to make too, that it needs a different mindset. It needs to be treated differently than another city department. It needs to have its own enterprise attitude rather than what's, and I get, you can flip that and say, why hasn't the city done that? But that's why the consultant is coming forth with that recommendation.
Okay.
Yeah, that was kind of my personal assessment as I went through this. All of those recommendations, if the current owner had given them priority, could be doing those things already and seeing if they would work. So I don't see making this a regional authority. It's going to help matters just to do that. And then they would also have taxing power, right?
Commissioner.
That's part of it.
Commissioner, excuse me, that we would determine that as when we come forward with an enabling resolution. So you would not, you know, with this resolution, you're not giving that authority. But it is possible that, yes, the 3 entities or 4 entities could give that new governing body the authority to tax.
That's my biggest fear, is that people out in Holdingford and St. Stephen and Sauk Center and El Rosa are going to be taxed for that airport, which, you know, Benton County is geographically a much better fit than most of Stearns County is, and they've declined to support this or to participate at all. So
I've got a couple comments. You folks can come back later with your ideas as well. First of all, Mike, I want to say I appreciate your work on this, and also the fact that this is in the developmental stage. The idea of what this authority would be, and I appreciate you looking at the bigger picture and already, for example, the expenditures and keeping St. Cloud at the level that they are, rather than just starting everybody diving in at a fresh pace. But I do have a good number of questions about it and about moving forward with it. And I just want to vent those out and get those out there. First of all, with Commissioner Mergen mentioning Benton County, I would very much like to see it be a tri-county operation, because if we are going to see the folks that are going to have the benefit, yes, by all means, the people out in Meyer Grove and the people out in Belgrade and Bruton are not going to be benefiting from it as much as the people in Sauk Rapids and the other people in, let's say, for Foley in that part of Benton County. And so I would, if we're going to have an authority, which would be, I think it would have to be, or should be at least, maybe a tri-county authority. And the people in western part of Stearns County maybe should not be bearing the burden financially of any of that, or maybe a very, very small part because of the benefit that they will receive from that. The other thing I was concerned about is taking over of the property and the liabilities that they have. When I think about that, it's like, well, then they're going to give their property to the authority. Well, thanks for the property, but along with that property comes the liabilities. And I was just looking at some of the maintenance on the runway, and I look at that and I say, well, they were doing surface and crack filling on it, and it showed the amounts and the dates at which it took place. But when would the reconstruct be? And again, if there's federal monies available for that, that's fine. But if we have to pick up a good portion of that, is that the type of business we want to be into? Same thing with the construction of the hangars. As far as future hangars, if they say, well, we can balance our budget if we build these hangars and bring in more corporate jets, that would be good. But is that then a county investment that we're going to be making, plus the deferred maintenance that might be on the existing hangars? And I'm just wondering what might be out there for liability of the existing buildings and structures that are out there. So I've got a lot of questions as far as moving the authority, saying we're going to be part of this and we'll take it over, because I think there's a lot of financial questions that exist out there. But I think it's worth having the conversation, and I'm interested to hear what the rest of the board members have to say about it.
Mr. Chair, if I might just try to answer a couple of your concerns. I don't think I can fully unless we move forward and have continued discussion. But once at least one commissioner from Benton County saw the resolution and how it was crafted, and it had some long-term financial protection in it, at least they were interested in talking about it. I don't know if they were interested in taking it back to a full board, but at least he was interested in seeing it and perhaps having another conversation about it. Along with the property, I agree that there could be liabilities with the assets, but the assets are the income producing piece of the airport of the airport, and so we didn't. Early on, when we were having discussions, the concern was that the city would not want to fully give up, control of those assets. And so the reason that I wanted to put that in the resolution here was to demonstrate that the city is certainly willing to give up complete control and authority over the airport. So that's really why I put that in the resolution.
I agree that would be how I would want it to happen if you're going to have an authority.
And things like hangars, they are income producing. And in the past, yes, there's been some debt incurred or cash, of course, used to build a hangar, but they're income producing and typically pay for themselves, at least once the debt is paid.
Okay.
So but I think those are all the conversations that we need to have as we move forward here, and be sure we understand what where this business plan is going to take us, if we do it.
Something else that was mentioned repeatedly as I read through this was the location of this airport, that is just too close to the Minneapolis-St. Paul airport. That was mentioned repeatedly in the assessment here. And that's a large negative factor which can't be overcome.
Yes, and then I think Mr. Baldwin was clear in his opinion that we are not going to have commercial air service here now or in the near future.
And Mike, and I want to respond to that too, because I would say it later, right, we have to accept the airport for what it is and not try to make it what it isn't. And that commercial carrier would be very challenging to produce.
Yeah, and just to add, I mean, that's because the commercial market approach has changed. I mean that their business model isn't to be doing regional hubs, you know, the greater Minnesota hubs anymore. And the irony is there is a whole additional study agreement that we're supposed to be the second airport, but who knows what the heck that means anymore? Because MSP has clearly figured out how to expand. So one of the questions for our region, it seems, is how are we building on charter, commercial? We've got a great asset with the Guard there. What else does that mean? But you know, it is, I think it's fair to say, I mean, it's partially because the commercial airlines have changed the way they're approaching things.
Commissioner Lenzmeier's quiet.
Oh, it scares you, huh?
Yes.
I'm on the airport advisory board, and some of the right things that seem obvious to utilize data for marketing are unavailable to us for a variety of reasons. For example, one idea that we took a look at was doing a periodic, maybe twice a month, writing down license plate numbers of the cars parked in a lot, and then using that data from that information. These are clearly users. That would be part of the marketing. Well, supposedly, we're not allowed to use that data in that manner. So that was a good idea for about 15 seconds, and then that was it. Another source of information that's proprietary that would spring to mind is the data from the airlines. But they're not willing to share that. It's proprietary, so we were cut off in that venture. Without a doubt, I think that the future of that is corporate. In the past, it was quietly assumed that corporate would be the strategy to follow, but we'd sell it using passenger service. God, passenger service has turned out to be a pretty expensive way to market. If you need a reason to pursue the corporate avenue, I'll share this story, a short story, and then I'll show you how it relates to the airport. There's a couple folks I know that have been very successful in the area, developing and managing apartment buildings. I was having a conversation with them, essentially stressing the importance of feasibility studies where they build. And their response was, our feasibility study is our last 48 units. If they don't fill, we stop. It's a good strategy. It's a hell of a lot cheaper than a feasibility study. Well, what's the similar application to the airport? All their hangar space is full, and it's full of business users. And as Dr. Willie pointed out, that is a revenue-generating thing, and we can finance it with bonds. Bonds are still cheap. So that's the immediate need, because the current hangars are full, and that points to the corporate user. I do think that if we can make this more accommodating in other ways that I can't think of, but I hope somebody can, I think we could pull some relocations out of the metro area. The MAC is not just about the airport that we think of as the airport. Their Flying Cloud, for example, is under the MAC umbrella. Anoka County Airport is under the MAC umbrella, and the Anoka County Board complains about the MAC when they run out of topics to complain about. And and what is different this time around, I think we've got a unique opportunity. The MAC will not participate financially in this effort. However, they hell of a source of information. You got Patty McGartland, who's on the MAC board. Brian Ricks is the manager of MAC. He started his, I don't know, maybe there was a stop before this, but he used to be the manager of St. Cloud Airport. From here, I think he went to a place in Michigan, and then he went to Duluth, then to Michigan, and now he's here. Mitch Killian, their legislative lobbyist, St. Augusta boy, certainly has an understanding of this area. Plus, his dad, Bob, was a real propeller head. He had private aircraft, had his own landing strip. So he can be an asset. They will help with the information. And they make a wonderful case of why we don't want to be part of them. So it's been a real resource. That's been my experience so far. We might think about beating Benton County to death with an olive branch. What I mean by this is, let's include them in the discussion. This committee that Dr. Willie's talking about, they won't have a voting thing, but we want them there. And that's about the best we can do, as long as they don't have the votes. Clearly, it's an underutilized asset. I mean, clearly it was paid for by tax money. It wasn't stuff that came out of our budget, but it's still tax money. And I don't have a silver bullet answer on this, other than let's look at it some more. Let's keep discussing it. I don't think the horse is dead. Maybe it's sicker than we appreciate, but it's not dead yet. So that's about.
Is that a motion?
All I have for you. No, I don't want to make the motion on this one. But, thank you for your willingness to second.
Okay. Anyone else? I got some more
I will be
questions.
happy to make the motion. Maybe we should get a motion on the table so
Okay.
we can. And I totally agree with, that was pretty broad, but I think you really hit a lot of the challenges and opportunities that are here. But moving forward and having Benton invited to participate, I don't know where we're for sure going with this, but I agree with you, the horses.
No, we're all, none of us do. It's another adventure, kind of like immigration. No, it's not at all like immigration.
No.
Commissioner Clark, then let's get a clarification. Let's get a clarification on the motion. Your motion is then to.
Well, we would adopt the resolution for the.
Technically, take it off the
All
table
right,
first.
all right. So so what are we
We
moving?
took it off the
Oh, we already did, I'm sorry.
Yeah, we did take it off. I was gonna say,
That
that's why I was
much fun
confused.
Losing track.
We could do it again.
Okay.
No, don't do it again.
Okay.
You were doing the right thing.
My understanding in this, we'd be adopting this resolution and creating the ad hoc group, which in no way binds us at this point, right?
That's
We'll
right.
be coming back because there's too many, there's a lot of unknowns.
And you also need to select somebody to serve on that ad hoc committee.
Okay. That might be a
Which you can do
second.
all at once or
Oh,
afterwards, doesn't matter.
Okay, I don't know if there's somebody who wants to be on the ad hoc group. Would you, I'm gonna move that Commissioner Lensmeyer would sit on that ad hoc group, and if for some reason he couldn't be there, I'm willing to be an alternate. Are you willing? I mean, you've got the
I think
in-depth
that's, I
history.
think that's a revenge suggestion, but I guess I'll tolerate it.
Oh, no, it was an opportunity. I have a son who's into opportunities lately, so
Yeah,
that was an
dubious-
opportunity.
A dubious opportunity, okay. All right.
I think we still need a second. So don't make that a revenge, Commissioner.
Okay, I'll second it.
Okay, we got a motion and a second?
My own news.
Okay. With that discussion, I've got a couple of questions, Mike, that are pertinent to the operations. When we look at that $750,000 to $800,000 deficit that's presently being shown, does that include some of the softer hidden costs that we might not otherwise include? And what I mean is, what about, for example, the snow plowing in and around the airport? Is the city of St. Cloud doing that, and are they having that as a cost there? Likewise, let's say any police or deputy sheriff support, would any of that come back on to the authority? And would there be any other costs that would be similar to that would be soft costs that the city's actually doing, let's just say for staff time? Because the city staff is doing things, but it's not going charged to the airport. But now that we have an authority, now we have to have a person that would then be on the airport authority, which would be a new hire, which then we would bear the burden for. So are there hidden costs that we're not necessarily seeing? And I didn't see those in the report because I didn't read it actually every word.
No, it's an excellent question, Mr. Chair. But the subsidy, if we can call it that, is comprised of, and it was part of this.
Yeah, I thought it was in here.
It's a hard dollar of like $695,000. And then they also itemized out a number of the services that are provided by the city of St. Cloud, such as security, fire suppression, legal services, engineering. They even costed out some of the finance support and that kind of thing. And that is a dollar amount that is included in that total amount that the city will continue to provide.
Okay.
So at some point, we'll have to figure out how that all gets paid for or done in the future. But the subsidy the amount includes all of that.
I just have a comment kind of related to this. I believe that article was a while back, but I don't know if any of you remember reading, was it the city of Silver Bay, where they wanted to terminate their airport, but because they took the federal monies, the federal government won't let them shut the airport down, even though it needs like buku bucks worth of improvements. I mean, this would be a similar situation even with St. Cloud, I'm guessing, is that a lot of funding has been federal dollars. And
Commissioner, Mr. Chair, Commissioner, I would think that would be the case. There was many millions of federal dollars spent at the St. Cloud Regional Airport. I think that, though, related to the airport authority, I think that we would, and again, this would get into the details, but we'd have to have some kind of exit strategy if the authority needed to come apart.
Oh.
And so, would that revert back to the city? That's what I'm assuming, but those are the kinds of things that we need to figure out as we go through this.
This isn't exactly the same experience as Silver Bay, Steve, but here's one of the things that's happening out there. The airport needs about $1.6 million, $1.7 million in water and sewer and surface improvements, and it's not going forward because if it did, that would be another reason, in the opinion of the mayor, for the counties not to pursue this. So he doesn't want to create more debt responsibilities than may already exist to lock a potential future entity in. So it's a good observation. There's a vague parallel between what you talked about and reality.
And maybe this is a little out of the realm too, but I think in the study we don't really know the balance sheet of the airport right now, do we?
We don't have what?
A balance sheet.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Good point.
I mean, we don't know the value of the assets or the amount of debt obligations currently existing there.
I'm of the opinion we'd add.
Maybe you've seen it.
No, I haven't. We'd be playing taps for the whole operation, except for the fact that when they landed the National Guard facility, that really put us on gave us gave the airport a higher profile in terms of the federal and state issues that we had before. They transferred out of St. Paul, Little Airport in St. Paul, Midway Airport, yeah, so.
Okay.
Yeah, the more we talk about it, the more that this scares me.
Yeah. Well, it should.
Because,
It should.
well, now we find out it needs $1.6 million in water and sewer, so that'll be added afterward if it's not being done. And then and like Steve said, we haven't seen a balance sheet, so.
Yeah.
I just,
Sounds
I
like a couple things to be
personally
addressed in this
really
group.
don't want any part of it.
We'll leave it.
If I may, and then we're looking at the structure of the potential authority. It talks about having a commissioner on there and a person from the city of St. Cloud, and then I believe 3 other entities, so that would be a board of 7? Is that what I mean, is that the idea of the structure? My question is going to be this: as far as the additional members, I think it would be wise to identify what it is we're looking for as those members to be. So I would not like to see them be all of the same cut of fiber, in that they should not all be just, let's say, metro business people. That it would be somewhat a way it's decided that they don't have one special interest, because that special interest could obviously have a large impact with 3 votes, which way the authority goes.
Additional members, are you talking, for instance, Anoka?
No,
Or Wright County?
I believe they're members within the.
Mr. Chair, I just want to clarify too that this ad hoc committee would consist of the 3, if we can get Ben to participate, that's another thing. But this resolution shows 3 administrators, 3 commissioner, or 3 elected officials, and then that group will then find 3 more people to be on that ad hoc committee.
Right.
That group is then going to determine what the authority
would look like.
The
Okay.
airport authority would look like. And we have some ideas about who might be able to help us with this in the ad hoc committee. For example, David Church has an employee now that is an expert in aviation and aeronautics, and we could tap into that expertise. So, but the group, this ad hoc group needs to get together and decide on who they want for those other 3.
Okay.
But one of the main tasks is to sort out some of these details and determine or make a recommendation what the final board is going to look like, what the authority board is going to look like.
Okay.
Yep. And I'm still at the point, the more I hear about it, the more it scares me.
Oh, justifiably so. This is complicated. It's not like immigration. That was a simple issue.
Oh, okay.
We can call the question.
I'm going
Yeah, call the
I'm
question.
going to call the question, but I want, with the understand, I want to see what the understanding is. If the understanding of saying yes is just that we would continue to perpetuate it with this ad hoc committee to move it forward, bring us back to more questions. The commitment from the board itself is nothing other than to gather more information through this process,
This
correct?
committee and the staff will prepare a joint resolution authorizing and directing the creation. They have to come back, they have to get us to say yes. There's no yes, there's no creation without us. So hopefully there's, maybe it's a friendly, suggestion, there's a way for the ad hoc group to keep us apprised if we move forward with this, so that we're having an opportunity to get questions answered as well.
I see the rural areas really getting hit again here.
Commissioner Morgan and I appreciate your angst, and that's why I'm reluctant to move it forward. However, as far as us making a commitment, as far as it being a done deal and having authority and that they will take over the airport, that's not where we're going with this. And so I guess I would be okay with moving it forward with the idea that it's putting something together that has the possibility of changing the present operations. Okay.
We do underappreciate corporate entities that are in rural locations. Bear built, what's the trailer?
Felling.
Yeah, Felling trailer.
But Sauk Center has airport too. Sauk Center has an airport too.
And, if they get a bigger jet, or they get a jet, maybe, that'll be an option, but I don't know.
Okay, and then, okay.
No.
Call the question.
Okay, and then I'm going to call the question, but with that, I want to make one more comment. And that is, if Benton County would be reluctant as far as joining, I would see the possibility maybe the city of Sauk Rapids would potentially be a member, because the population, what, 14,000 people, that's
And you got
involved.
corporate entities there.
Yeah, and so they might have a valid reason to be part of it as well, so.
If you're going to include Sauk Rapids, you may want Sartell too then.
Well, if
Cartels in Stearns County.
would be included, so if we would be
And
part of that.
part of it is in
yeah.
Benton.
Right, but no, Jeff, too, if it would be a different model, if it would be a city model, that, yeah, that they would maybe include that, so.
On the
okay.
other hand, maybe Sartell can. There's a corporate presence there.
Yeah,
You know, if not by company location, certainly by residents. You got some players there.
okay.
They're willing to finance the concert.
And I've got to make that meeting yet. Then I will go ahead and with reservation, I will call the question. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed?
Aye.
Roll call.
Commissioner Morgan,
Name?
Commissioner Lenzmeyer,
Aye.
Commissioner Notch,
Nay.
Commissioner Clark,
Aye.
Commissioner Persky.
Aye.
It passes 3-2.
Good meeting. We have a couple of those.
Oh, we got to close yet here. Last item on the agenda, item K, issues by commissioner. First of all, Randy? Steve?
You know, maybe on this whole transportation issue, we have to look at a bigger picture. Maybe if one day St. Cloud's going to be this regional hub, maybe we have to put this in the back of our mind. Maybe we need to create a light rail that's going to run on what used to be, or what is currently now the Lake Wobegon Trail. We might have to make that a light rail and bring that, you know, the western population, you know, the towns are losing population because of communication devices, transportation issues. You know, I think in the future, there's a potential there where something to that effect might take place, because though, instead of commuting to Minneapolis, St. Paul, it might be St. Cloud metro area. So that might be a possibility we have to look down the road.
Okay.
Just, you know, big picture. Not take away from the trail, but.
Okay.
Cool.
The Wobegon Rail? I don't know. Okay, we'll see. Anything else?
No.
Okay. Lee?
Already, in my opinion, if you guys buy into this, maybe there's some benefit to the discussion we had with Lutheran Social Services. I can clearly see, remember when we did the department studies? I hope at some point in the future we discuss the possibility of having similar studies with the nonprofits that we're working, that we contract with, because it's silly to continue this unmonitored, because they may be moving in a direction that's not consistent with our mission, or whatever that might be. You've got a mission statement, I see it right there.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know how we do that, you know, but that's the only thing I got to add.
Okay. Yeah?
I have nothing.
Okay, Carol?
Just because it was pretty amazing. From an American standpoint, the U.S. Women's Soccer Football Championship was pretty great, and it was fun seeing our red, white, and blue in full force.
Just one quick thing, remember that Oxbow Solar lawsuit that we talked about, I think, at the last meeting? I just got notice this morning that we and the Railroad Authority both were dismissed from the suit. I don't know about the property owner, though. Hopefully I'll find out that answer today.
And I was served those envelopes yesterday, and I brought them in today.
Oh, good,
So,
yeah.
we are off the hook with that, so that's encouraging. Anything else, Mike?
No.
Okay. And I don't have really anything other than our discussion on the airport. I think it was a good, healthy discussion. Also, with Lutheran Social Services was quite good as well. I appreciate the openness and discussion amongst the board members here. But I will say that, you know, it's, again, my opinion is to just move that forward for further discussion. In no way is it saying that we're going to create this authority, but I think it's worth looking at, and maybe even allow St. Cloud to take a look at some operations that they may be able to change themselves. So
Maybe one more thing, and I'm not sure if this is happening before our next meeting, but the Stearns County Fair
Oh, it's coming up.
is July 31st through August 4th.
Yeah, and I think our next board meeting is the 30th, so if you got beans or corn or potatoes you want to bring and show
There
at
you
the
go.
fair along with animals. Hogs?
Pies.
Oh, well, I thought
You bring
maybe
hogs
the
too,
Andersons
but
had some
That might
hogs.
make it a little noisy.
Okay, pies, sure, well, good enough. Other than that, I'll look for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
I've had enough. Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. We're adjourned.